Israel just told its own citizens something no government ever wants to admit. We can no longer guarantee we'll warn you in time. Not stay alert, not follow shelter procedures, not the usual government language that sounds reassuring while meaning nothing. Israel's military home front command issued a formal statement telling the country that, due to, quote, operational considerations, missile alerts may be sent to mobile phones only moments before sirens sound. Or not at all. Read that again. A government with one of the most sophisticated missile defense architectures on the planet just told 7 million people, we cannot commit to giving you any warning before missiles hit. Because here's what that actually means in military terms. The warning gap that used to exist for Iranian ballistic missiles, the 3 to 7 minutes that gave families enough time to move, to shelter, to get into a protected room, has collapsed. Documented attacks on March 6th showed warnings arriving 60 to 90 seconds before sirens, in some cases 1 minute. In some cases, the siren came first. That's not a defense system, that's a countdown clock with no face. And that admission, coming from the IDF itself, not from Iran, not from social media speculation, from Israel's own military command, is the single most significant public statement of this entire conflict. Because it confirms what Iran's strategy has been quietly achieving for weeks. Stage 1. Destroy the radar systems, the eyes, the systems that detect launches the moment they happen, that calculate flight paths in real time, that trigger the warning chain before anyone has time to think. Stage 2. Drain the interceptor stockpiles, the fists, Arrow batteries David's sling, Iron Dome, all of them burning through inventory faster than they can be replaced, against an adversary firing waves designed specifically to exhaust them. When both are degraded simultaneously, missiles arrive with almost no warning and face reduced resistance on the way in. Israel's own military just confirmed publicly that both are happening. But as significant as that admission is, it isn't even the largest development in this conflict right now, because on the same night Israel's warning system was being documented failing in real time. Iran launched one of the most expansive single-night strike packages of the entire war. Iraq, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Israel, the UAE. 5 countries targeted in coordinated waves within hours of each other. This isn't a country fighting defensively, this is a country operating from preloaded target packages, distributed command structures, and weapons that were ready before the first U.S.-Israeli bomb fell on Tehran on February 28th. Qatar is now under emergency protocols. The country that hosted the World Cup in front of the world 3 years ago, and the gleaming towers, the financial hub, the city built on the argument that the Gulf could be prosperous and safe and modern, received government emergency alerts telling residents to shelter in place after Iranian strikes hit the Mesaid and Ras Laffan energy facilities. Qatar halted liquefied natural gas production. Qatar, one of the world's largest LNG exporters. Production stopped. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, Manama, Riyadh, cities that spent 2 decades building a case that this region could be stable, investable, and safe, all simultaneously absorbing incoming Iranian strikes. And into this burning multi-country crisis, the United States is deploying a 3rd aircraft carrier. The USS Abraham Lincoln is in the Arabian Sea conducting active strike operations against Iran. The USS Gerald R. Ford just transited the Suez Canal and is now operating in the Red Sea. And the USS George H.W. Bush completed its final combat certification on March 5th and has been declared ready to deploy, moving toward a theater where Iran has hypersonic missiles that current deployed American systems have no confirmed intercept capability against, where the Strait of Hormuz is effectively Iranian firing range, and where Iran has explicitly stated that anything entering those waters is a valid military target. 3 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, the largest concentration of American naval power since the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Trump is calling it leverage. Iran is calling it a target list. History will decide which framing was correct. The physics right now are not taking sides. Let's talk about Trump's public statements on this war, because there's a pattern that has become impossible to ignore. Since the conflict began, Trump has repeatedly posted to Truth Social and stated in interviews that Iran is on the verge of unconditional surrender. The word he used, in all caps, in an official post on March 6th, was unconditional surrender. He has told NBC he wants to totally demolish Iranian forces and clean out Iran's leadership. He has made explicitly clear that regime change is the objective, not counter-proliferation, not nuclear containment, regime change. And within hours of every statement about Iran breaking, another wave of Iranian strikes, larger than the one before, hits another country. The gap between what Trump is saying and what Iran is actually doing has become so wide and so consistently documented that it's stopped being a credibility problem and started being a strategic warning sign. When a leader repeatedly claims the enemy is surrendering while the enemy is visibly escalating, one of two things is true. Either the intelligence apparatus has failed catastrophically and the leader genuinely doesn't know what's happening on the ground, or the leader knows, and the American public is being managed rather than informed about a war being fought with their money and their soldiers' lives. Neither option is acceptable. Both options are dangerous. Here's what Iran's actual behavior says about the surrender narrative. Iran just began its formal process to select a new supreme leader. Ali Khamenei was killed in the opening strikes on February 28th. Under the Iranian constitution, a three-member interim leadership council took power immediately. President Pezeshkian, Chief Justice Mohseni Ejei, and Guardian Council member Ayatollah Arafi. That structure has been functioning since day one. Now the Assembly of Experts has announced it will convene to formally elect a permanent successor. The frontrunner, according to Iran International, the New York Times, CBS News, and multiple Iranian sources, is Mojtaba Khamenei, the late Supreme Leader's son, under active pressure from IRGC commanders who have been making calls and holding meetings to deliver enough votes. No formal announcement has been confirmed as of this recording. The process is contested. The Assembly's meeting in Qom was reportedly bombed by Israel while votes were being counted. But here is what that process tells you, regardless of the outcome. A government that is collapsing does not hold leadership elections. A system that is breaking does not conduct constitutional succession procedures under active bombardment. Collapsing regimes don't elect leaders. Functioning systems do. Iran is governing in the middle of a war. That is not what surrender looks like. The succession process also carries two simultaneous implications. First, once a new supreme leader is confirmed, Iran gains a single chain of command capable of making diplomatic commitments that the interim council may not have the authority or the political standing to make. Second, that same restored chain of command means more coordinated, more centrally directed military operations than the distributed autonomous strikes we've seen so far. The diplomatic window and the military escalation window are opening at the same moment. Now let's talk about Britain, because London just made a move that deserves more attention than it's getting. Britain has placed HMS Prince of Wales, one of its two aircraft carriers, on 5 days' notice to sail. That's down from 10 days. The Ministry of Defense has deployed additional Typhoon jets, F-35s, air defense systems, and approximately 400 additional personnel to Cyprus. HMS Dragon, a Type 45 destroyer, has been ordered to deploy to protect British assets in the region. The MOD has been explicit that no final deployment decision has been made on the carrier itself, but it has been equally explicit that the ship is being readied for rapid mobilization. A country whose economy has been navigating post-Brexit structural pressures and significant post-COVID debt. A country whose citizens are absorbing energy costs that have generated genuine domestic political pressure. That country is now readying an aircraft carrier for deployment toward a conflict where Iran has already struck the Strait of Hormuz shipping corridor into near-total closure, destroyed a billion-dollar American radar installation in Jordan, and explicitly warned that any country entering the conflict zone will be treated as a combatant. Iran did not respond to the British carrier readiness announcement with diplomatic concern. Iranian state media treated it as a military statement, that any naval deployment toward the theater would be regarded as an act of entry into the conflict. And then, in a move that tells you something about the state of the U.S.-UK relationship right now, Trump posted on Truth Social on March 8th. essentially dismissing the British offer entirely, saying he didn't need British carriers and that the war was already won. The strategic logic of Britain's deployment posture under these specific conditions is genuinely difficult to identify. What is identifiable is the political logic. Post-Brexit Britain needs American trade relationships more than at any point in recent history. When America calls, Britain answers, and the sailors and airmen being recalled from leave to prepare that carrier are the price of that political calculation. Meanwhile, the Strait of Hormuz. Before and after satellite imagery of Gulf shipping lanes tells the story in a single image. Weeks ago, dense tanker traffic, container ships, the commercial circulatory system of the global economy flowing normally. Today, near total halt. Bloomberg confirmed on March 6th that shipping through the strait remains at near total standstill. Oil futures hit $90 a barrel. Brent crude approaching $95, the biggest weekly oil price gain in at least 2 decades. Japan, South Korea, Australia, India, countries with no vote in how this war started and no military role in how it's being fought, are watching their energy economics deteriorate in real time because of decisions made in Washington and Tel Aviv. The world didn't decide to close the Strait of Hormuz. The world is paying for it anyway. Let's be direct about what America's stated objective in this conflict has become. Trump told NBC on March 6th that he wants to clean out Iran's leadership and install what he called a great and acceptable replacement. His words, posted publicly. He has explicitly compared the model to Venezuela: remove the existing government, install a compliant replacement, reshape access to the country's resources. The Venezuela comparison wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. It was the model. The difference is Venezuela doesn't have Fata-2 hypersonic missiles. Iran does. So here's the question that every government, every investor, every ordinary person downstream of this conflict needs to be asking clearly right now. What does victory actually look like here, and what is the realistic path to achieving it? Regime change through military pressure? Iran's population under sustained bombardment, under the most extensive sanctions regime of the modern era, is not rising in mass revolt against the government. Markets in Tehran are open. The state continues to function. The IRGC continues to coordinate. The succession process continues. The social collapse that the theory of this war required has not materialized because Iranians have spent 45 years being told that American military power was eventually coming for them, and they prepared for it, not with capitulation, with institutional resilience. Military degradation? Iran's first-generation missile inventory has been substantially depleted, but its hypersonic systems, the Fata-2 first used in combat on March 1st, are now in active deployment against targets that no currently fielded American or Allied system can reliably intercept. Iran's military trajectory in this war is not degrading toward impotence. It is escalating toward systems that its adversaries haven't solved. Economic strangulation. Iran has operated under comprehensive sanctions for 40 years. The Iranian economy functions under conditions that would collapse most nations. And right now, Iran is generating more economic disruption to the global system through the Hormuz closure, Gulf investment withdrawal, and energy market shock than 40 years of American sanctions generated inside Iran. There is no clear military path to the stated objective. There is no clear economic path to the stated objective. And the diplomatic path, the one that has been technically available since the first week, requires acknowledging publicly what every analyst looking at this honestly and every Gulf state communicating this privately to Washington already knows. The strikes will not stop while American military bases remain operational on Gulf soil. Iran stated this on day one. It has repeated it consistently. Remove the bases, end the strikes. Keep the bases, continue the war. It is a clear condition with a clear consequence. The Gulf states are not going to make that request publicly while American firepower is still the only thing standing between them and Iranian saturation strikes, but the signals are everywhere if you know how to read them. Investment withdrawal reviews, emergency back-channel contacts. The joint condemnation statement from Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Jordan on March 1st condemned Iranian strikes. but notably stopped well short of endorsing the U.S.-Israeli campaign that triggered them. These governments are not America's enthusiastic partners in this war. They are trapped between an adversary that is hitting them for hosting American forces and an ally they cannot publicly ask to leave. That's where we are on day 9 of this conflict. 9. 3 American carriers, Britain's carrier on standby, France's Charles de Gaulle in the Mediterranean. The Strait of Hormuz closed. Iran selecting a supreme leader under IRGC pressure in the middle of active bombardment. Israel issuing warnings with 90 seconds notice, a new hypersonic missile phase in active deployment, oil at $90 and climbing, and Trump on social media calling it a surrender. The missiles disagree. History is being made in the gap between what powerful people are saying and what the weapons are actually doing. That gap has never been wider. The consequences of what fills it have never been higher. Pay attention. Because what gets decided in the next 2 weeks doesn't just determine what the Middle East looks like. It determines the shape of the world for the next 50 years.